Seattle, a wonderful city known for their iconic teriyaki, mild weather, and immaculate tap water. Now you've probably heard about how wet the city gets, but fret not, the moderately moist environment is balanced by the incredibly dry and barren dating app scene. Now, to quickly introduce myself, my name is Rinahra. I've lived in Washington my entire life, but I actually moved to Seattle back in 2019 because of work. Before that, though, I could probably count the amount of times I've been to Seattle on two hands, which is kind of embarrassing because I don't even think I can name a neighborhood to save my life. So over the last 3 years, I've learned a lot about Seattle, and I know that there are so many online guides about the cute and quirky aspects of the city, but here I want to go over the parts that aren't really talked about. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. First of all, avoid driving in the city. I made a whole video about why I got rid of my car when I moved to Seattle, so I would highly recommend checking it out up here. To keep it short and sweet, driving ain't it. There's a lot of congestion and the streets are littered with one-way roads that you don't even realize are one-way roads until it's too late. And the parking situation is even worse. It's super expensive to park literally anywhere in the city, and most apartments don't even offer a parking spot. If they do, it'll cost like another $100 or $200 just to have that reserved parking spot, which isn't worth it in my opinion. But if you are insistent on bringing a car and driving it around in the city, make sure to check if the place you're living is in a restricted parking zone, because those places do require permits. These permits are around $65 and they last around 2 years, so if you want to see more information, I'll put some resources down below. Honestly speaking though, public transit is super good here in Seattle. Like there's a light rail that goes throughout the city, a huge, insane bus network, and tons of options for e-bike share, scooter share, and honestly even car share. Seattle is actually kind of big. In terms of area, it's around double the size of Paris and San Francisco. Seattle is actually made up from a bunch of neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has their own vibe, and you can actually tell how much cooler one side of the city is from all of the others. There could be a whole video dedicated to checking out each of the neighborhoods and going through them in detail. I'm not going to do that. However, what I will do is go through a quick list of a couple neighborhoods that I think are worth visiting and honestly aren't. U District. This has a whole street full of good food. There's literally so many boba shops here within a 1-mile radius. It's also super close to the University of Washington, so I wouldn't want to live here if I'm over 26 and not a student. Unless you're cool with being surrounded by college students up to their shenanigans. Capitol Hill. This is a queer capital of the city. There's great nightlife, tons of bars and food places open late at night, and there's always things going on here. Fremont. It's like a grown-up version of Capitol Hill. It's cute and quirky and has this nice vintagey charm to it. South Lake Union. Everything feels like it was built in the last 10 years and the vibes feel very manufactured. Downtown. There are some fun places and events happening in the International District, but there's really not too much to do downtown. I also wouldn't recommend walking around there at night. If you're enjoying this video, why don't you give this video a big thumbs up to help out with the channel. I'd really appreciate it, and it's free. There's this saying that's always being thrown around called the Seattle Freeze, and if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a belief that it's really hard to make friends in Seattle. Seattle is comprised of mostly transplants, aka people who are born outside of the city. Around 50,000 people each year relocate to Seattle, which is a huge number considering that the population of Seattle is around 800,000 people. If the majority of people who live in Seattle aren't even from Seattle, then what is a Seattle Freeze? Like, where does it come from? Is it even real? Generally speaking, I feel like most locals can agree that Seattle is comprised of mostly introverts, considering how tech-heavy of a city it is. And this does show in the nightlife because it is a city that sleeps and it feels like everything is shut down at 9 p.m. each night. Now this is like a really offhanded tip, but if you move here and you're having a hard time making friends, get a dog. Adopt, borrow, steal from someone else. Just find a way to get a dog. Not only do dogs make really good companions, allegedly, I've actually never owned a dog so I wouldn't know, they make really good wingmen, especially for making new friends. Seattle has the most pets per capita in the US. 1 in every 4 people here have a dog. There are dog parks all over the city, and I feel like the easiest way to break the ice and start making new friends is to have some common ground, which is easy when you're making friends with dog owners. There's already hundreds of videos on the restaurant scene here in Seattle, so I wanted to change it up a bit and shed a little light on the coffee shop scene. The popularity of coffee can actually be traced to the 60s when coffee shops started opening up in the U District. Then out of nowhere, coffee shops started popping off in the 70s and 80s, mostly specializing in those dark roasted, handcrafted Italian espresso drinks. And in the more recent years, the third wave started taking over, where the focus is now on how the beans are produced, processed, and sourced. This led to lighter roasts, which brought out the most depth in the flavor profiles of the beans. And latte art too. You know what also came out of the bean water boom in Seattle? Starbucks. So Starbucks came from Seattle, and if you ask me, I feel like Starbucks is alright. The only thing they really have going for them is their really nice reward system. I can promise you, once you find that amazing local coffee shop, the only time you'll be going to Starbucks would be to claim your free birthday drink once a year. Back in 1901, a lad from Sweden and a Seattle shoemaker thought it was a fun and dandy idea to do a little collab and open a boutique called Wallen & Nordstrom, which later became the high-end retailer Nordstrom, which we are all pretty familiar with. Considering Nordstrom's initial success came from Seattle, you'd expect that Seattleites would have a taste for luxury and designer brands, right? Here's the thing. REI, the largest and most well-known outdoorsy co-op, also came from Seattle. It started back in 1935 by Lloyd and Mary Anderson, and it has taken off ever since. REI just meshed better with the folks here because of how nature is so integrated with the culture, and hiking is pretty much a religion in Washington. This shift in fashion evolved into the granola couture that spread like wildfire in the Pacific Northwest region. If you ask me, most people here dress as if they're gonna go hiking that day, which even extends to business wear. It's actually pretty uncommon to see fellow coworkers wearing 6-year-old t-shirts that they got from college orientation, complete with set-in stains from God knows where, and a neckline stretched out enough to fit a couch, complete with 2 decorative cushions. What I'm saying is that the fashion here is practical, and most people don't really care about trends like New York or Paris. So to all of my fellow thrifters out there, the thrifting scene is meh. In the more recent times, I've noticed that the Seattle communities on the Nextdoor app, Citizen app, and on Reddit have been posting non-stop about how dangerous Seattle has gotten over the last couple of years and how the city has gone to shit. If you ask me, I would take that with a grain of salt, because these are the people who have not visited any other major US city in the last couple years. Seattle is a relatively safe place to be in. Fortunately, violent crimes are pretty rare. However, property crime is a thing here. So don't leave stuff unattended, and consider getting renter's insurance or some kind of insurance that'll give you peace of mind for your valuables. For me personally, I can imagine myself settling down in a city like Seattle. But man, the affordability is something else. But you want to know what is affordable? Hitting that like button if you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this in the future. Also, drop a comment down below letting me know your moving plans to Seattle or your general thoughts on the city itself. And to all the real ones who stuck it out to the end, I really do appreciate you. This is actually my 3rd time recording this video, which is why there's been such a delay getting this video out since my last one. But I can assure you that my next video will be a fun one, so stick around if you want to see some more thick and juicy content in the future. Toodles!